we've been here 9 years. And in those 9 years, it has been a steady, continuous drop in our incident rate. And not just the incident rate, because that's just going to tell you what our OSHA recordables are, but the severity of the injuries that we do have. Now, when we have an injury, it's very minor. It still might be recordable because of a prescription or whatever, but it's a very minor injury compared to what we would have seen, 10 years ago. When you look at what we do from a safety standpoint, a lot of it is based on behavior-based safety programs that we have. So much of what we look at from a safety standpoint, every incident can be prevented. And so much of it is really human factors. So we have to look at where a lot of times when you're in an environment like ours, when you see it, it's a pretty safe environment when you go out there because of a lot of the engineering controls we put in place. People tend to get complacent. So the real key is, how do you keep people from being complacent? One is you gotta keep it in front of them at all times, and you gotta hold people accountable, ourselves included. If I go out on the floor, if I'm not wearing my safety glasses or my earplugs, I absolutely expect any person on that floor to stop me, right? So, and that's just really where it comes down to. When you have every single person bought in and looking out for each other, and that's one thing that I talk about to people, especially new people coming in, if they've come from other manufacturing, especially some of the older school manufacturing environments. A lot of times it's people who are kind of being a lookout as opposed to looking out for each other. And that's the difference here, is everybody really cares that the other person goes home safely, right? That no one gets hurt, that we're not even looking at it just from a recordable standpoint. Our whole philosophy is zero harm. We don't want any type of incident to happen here.
Do misconceptions still exist about manufacturing? And if so, how would you counter those?
I would say that there are a good bit of misconceptions where people think that it's it's the old dungeon, it's dark and dank and dirty. You're going to be working hard and sweating all day long, heavy lifting. Don't get me wrong, those places still exist. But when you look at the facility that we have here and the type of manufacturing we're doing, so much of it is engineering controls. There's a lot of automation, a lot of robotics. People still have to touch things, but it's far less than it used to. It's a clean environment, and we like to keep it that way. It's bright. So it makes it where it's a much better work environment for people to come to, and it allows people to do their job better. You can see that defect a lot easier when it's nice and bright, as opposed to some of the darker places that I've seen in manufacturing.
What would you say are some of the most notable changes to how manufacturing was back then to now?
Obviously, automation and robotics has come a long way, and just the amount and the availability and the applications that they're being utilized in, to me, that's one of the biggest changes, and the speed at which it works. A lot of times, I worked for a company that was pretty far advanced when I first got out of the military, and some pretty good automation and robotics. But if I look back now at what it was like then, compared to what we see today, that you can get some of these robots off the shelf that are pretty far advanced, and you can program and get them to do just about anything. It's amazing how far it's come in just 24 years. The mechanical equipment, not much has really changed, at least in my experience, but it's really the automation and the robotics that have really made things move faster and safer.
Brain Gain is sponsored by the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition, the Moransky Companies, and Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC.